Back here on CBS Sports HQ, the conversation continues about James Franklin and what is next for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Of course, Penn State firing James Franklin after losing to Northwestern over the weekend. And we just heard from Penn State's athletic director, Pat Krabs, saying, you know, this was not a three-game thing, as Penn State is on that three-game losing streak. Currently, he said, quote, "This is really diving into where we were as a program," end quote. So we're really wondering who is going to be next, who are those top candidates that they're going to be looking forward to step in there as the head coach of Penn State. Now, our very own Chris Hummer is saying that James Franklin is going to be a red-hot candidate after the firing. So we're not only wondering who's going to step in for him, but what is next for James Franklin as he is no longer the head coach there in Happy Valley. All right, so let's welcome in Danny Kanell to have this conversation. Danny, it's being thrown out there. He's going to be a red-hot candidate after this firing. So let's talk potential landing spots. And this first one is kind of interesting because it is that certain unranked team that he lost to that I don't want to say started this whole thing, but kind of.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the connections to Los Angeles, and it's interesting because this job has been open before, and James Franklin was floated out to the West Coast at USC because his wife is from out there, and that ironically got him this huge deal with this massive buyout. But I do think it would be something that would be intriguing to both parties. UCLA, now assuming that Jerry Neuheisel train cools off a little bit, which I do think it will, and he's only 33 years old, I think that would be a place that both parties would find attractive. But I do wonder if UCLA can pull together the resources to show any coach, hey, we're committed to winning. We're committed to competing with USC in our own market, and we're committed to competing with the rest of schools in the Big Ten. But I do think the fact that James Franklin had been tied to the West Coast before makes some sense, where you kind of get a total change of scenery, go hit the West Coast, and start a program which if you get 8 or 9 wins at UCLA, all of a sudden you're treated like a king as opposed to being kicked to the curb the way he does after these 3 losses.
All right, so you mentioned his ties to California, to the West Coast, so we're kind of keep it in the state here, but this time talking about Stanford. So why do you think that could be a potential fit?
I think this is another spot that, again, they just had a $50 million check written to the program from alumni. Andrew Luck is the new head of the football program as the general manager. Frank Reich takes over. They've been more competitive than I think people thought, but they're still a team that and a program which did have coaches that had them winning 9, 10, 11 games when Jim Harbaugh was there, when David Shaw was there. And I do think he fits a profile of a Stanford coach, like very statesman-like, a figurehead, type of program that he also won at Vanderbilt. Remember Vanderbilt, high academic institution where he had them winning 9 wins. It was historic then. I could see him again, West Coast school, high academic, similar to the job he did at Vanderbilt, as possibly he might find that job attractive as well.
This next one is very interesting because, of course, we know that the Bill Belichick experiment out there in Chapel Hill is looking a little dicey, despite what he's saying about how, him leaving is false and not for us to buy into that. But we do have UNC on the list, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? I mean, I think with the way it's looked so bad, I'm just assuming that North Carolina is going to go in a different direction, and Bill Belichick might just say, yeah, I'll take it and let's get out of here. Let's just call this a mistake, what it was. But I still think North Carolina is a very attractive job in the ACC. And again, another program where the bar has been set so low, James Franklin could come in there and get them right back to where they were with Mac Brown and potentially escalating that to another level where it's wide open. You've got rev share now. I know the basketball school aspect of it could be a little bit tricky, but this place has been such a dumpster fire. I think they might be desperate enough to go ahead and back up the truck and say, you know what, James Franklin, here, come here, help us fix this mess that we've made. And the one thing that Bill Belichick has not been able to do is evaluate talent, get the top tier level there. And James Franklin's a great recruiter. We know that from everywhere he's been, just hasn't been able to punch through. I think he could take North Carolina that step in the right direction where they need to go.
All right, we're going to keep it in the ACC, but this time we're talking about SMU, where a school that's relatively new to the conference, Danny, and really not that far removed from the CFP run that we saw.
Yeah, and this is assuming Rhett Lashley tries, accepts another job, right? Because he is currently the head coach at SMU, and he's done a phenomenal job there. And Arkansas is going to be calling for him. If Auburn opens up, if Florida opens up, those are schools that Rhett Lashlee is going to get some phone calls. So if he leaves and James Franklin wants to step into a place where you can compete from day one, like they've already given and committed the resources to Rhett Lashlee since their move to the ACC, that they can compete with anybody. And it's a very attractive location. Being there in Dallas, you got great recruiting, location to be able to pull kids from Texas and Oklahoma and all throughout the Southeast. And this one to me feels like one of those places, if you want to guarantee to be a winner in 8 or 9 games and they'll be happy with you again and you could try to take that swing for the next fence, that one would make sense. Now, the ACC in both of these is interesting because the future of college football remains so uncertain, but it is easier to win and amass, 9, 10 win seasons in the ACC and potentially punch through and get more swings at the college football playoff. But I think Dallas is probably the most attractive landing spot if it is open.
All right. And finally, this one's not really a team, but kind of going to the media. So do you see this as maybe just like, a little break, like for a year or so, Danny? Is this the most likely situation in your eyes?
Yes, I think probably. I mean, all these ones we're kind of guessing. We're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And who knows how this is going to be the wildest coaching carousel that we'll have under my tenure being in this sport, like covering it. And it does, if he doesn't have the perfect spot that opens up and it feels like the resources are there, the contract is there, the opportunity is there, what better way? Because he will crush it in media. He's already great with us when he works, at Big Ten media days, anywhere else. He's very, entertaining. He's very opinionated. I think that's a place he could go survey the landscape for 1 year and then kind of decide where he wants to go from then. And if there's an opportunity to go someplace that fires their coach early next season, like they're doing this season, he might be the pick of the litter. He might be the best one available to come in, take a job over. So I think that might be the most likely landing spot, as James Franklin's probably somewhere on a TV screen.
All right. And Danny, I noticed there are no SEC jobs that are making the list here. So do you think there's not going to be any interest from SEC programs, or does it just kind of depend on if certain schools finally, do it and pull the trigger? I don't know.
I think it's a combination of a couple things. One, is that some of these jobs we haven't seen open yet. The other one is the SEC fans are so spoiled, right? They want to be able, and the administrators and the athletic directors are as well. Do you want to pull somebody from the top of their game like a Rhett Lashlee, or do you want to get somebody who's been discarded by Penn State? That, to me, I think is the real struggle and a mistake that some schools would make. Be like, oh, we can't have James Franklin because our fan base ultimately would come in here and they would start, rattling off his win-loss record versus top 5 opponents, which isn't great. Like, all of a sudden, the negativity that would come, I think would be just too much. That's why I think a year off would do him wonders to kind of get him back in the media, because I don't know if he's the home run hire that athletic directors and school presidents want to unveil to their fan base. I think it's short-sighted. I think it would take some fortitude for an athletic director. So you know what? This guy's record is incredible. We can have this, level of success year in and year out. I just think that with the SEC fan bases and the schools that are going to be in the hiring process this offseason are going to look for that home run hire. But we know one thing's for certain. They're not all going to hit home runs. There are going to be some that strike out. And so it's going to be really, really entertaining to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, certainly short-sighted to your point, because I can think of a lot of SEC teams who would like to be where Penn State was just last season. Danny, we appreciate it, talking about what is next for James Franklin, what is next for Penn State. And by the way, make sure you check out Danny and the crew, Damian, Ken's, BMAC, Emily Proud. They are heading to Madison, Wisconsin for #1 Ohio State in action in the Big Ten against Wisconsin. They are live from Union South on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you check it out.